Marty, are you there? It's Doc. I've made it to the year 2025. It's terrible, Marty. An absolute disaster. Everyone's horribly anxious and mutated. They're mutated, Marty. The only thing that's keeping them from ripping each other to shreds are reruns of this thing they call podcast. It's called the Arbitrarium. Oh no. They spotted me, Marty. I've gotta go. Don't come to the future, Marty. Don't come to the future. Get back. Get back. No!
Lately, there has been a resurgence of people seemingly in favor of Malthusianism, the view that population is getting out of control, resources cannot provide for the needs of everyone, and as such, some form of population control needs to be undertaken to prevent social and societal collapse. The most well-known proponent of Malthusianism, at least fictionally, is Thanos from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, who culled populations across the universe to save more people in the long run. Is this a morally righteous worldview? Is overpopulation a huge problem? And what is with antinatalists? Here to help me parse out this is census undertaker David Perry and human pachinko machine Nick Razo. So let me ask, was Kevorkian a model citizen?
Well, let's unpack Kevorkian for a minute. So, all I actually really know about Kevorkian was that, he had the idea that essentially a person should be able to decide when they die and how they die, if at all possible. So, there's a lot that goes into whether or not that's just one idea of one person. I don't know anything else about him, so I couldn't say that he's a model citizen. I've never met a model citizen, so my inclination is to say no. But
I bring up Kevorkian because most people look at the elderly, and that was primarily his patients. Mm-hmm. They're past their time of producing. They just become leeches on society.
Was this all part of his thing?
No, it wasn't a part of his thing, but a model citizen who really believed that would push these kind of, hey, come to me, let's get this mortality thing sorted out for you.
I think when you get to the point where you're trying to convince them to die, then you're in a bad spot. That's a problem.
Well, I believe the point he was trying to go with was when you're at that age, there's not a lot of fun involved. Let's face it. You can't really walk that well, your knees hurt all the time, and God knows what's happening with your back and organs. At that point, it's more voluntary euthanasia rather than convincing someone to die. They probably would go to him asking, hey, can I get this over with?
Yeah, that's what they did.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
The model citizen in this case takes the initiative to convince this person that they are a waste and they should die for the good of others.
Okay, so wait.
Or for their own good.
The model citizen. Explain that to me. How you're describing a model citizen.
In this case, a model citizen for a Malthusian theory worldview would be, okay, you're just drawing up resources, and the resources are finite. Population is already going up. We need to cull anyone who isn't producing and is just another mouth to feed.
Okay, so maybe a good thing to do right off the bat is to unpack Malthusianism a bit more. So talk about that. Explain that.
Okay, Malthusian theory, in a nutshell, is human population grows exponentially. Resources only grow linearly, if at all in some cases. So at some point, that there's just going to be too many people with not enough resources, and this is going to cause a lot of societal pressure, economic pressure. Things are going to collapse, and you're either going to starve to death, die in war, or win the war and end up being okay. But a lot of people are going to die before that happens. So Malthusian theory advocates for serious population control so it never gets to that point of crisis.
Okay, let's go back to humans reproduce exponentially, and how did you define the resources? Just resources in general? All resources?
I mean, specifically the things everyone needs.
Because vegetation...
water, food.
Okay.
You can't eat all vegetation.
Right.
Some water is not potable. Living space, that's another one.
Right, but it's
that some people-
well, water. I'm not sure how renewable you could say water is. I think once it's gone, it's kind of gone.
I mean, there's the water cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you think about it, every single drop of water in your body that you drank, that you breathed in, was
Probably-
dinosaur piss at one point.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay,
there's a very,
but-
very small chance that no, because we do get some water through the atmosphere and
So
various
how does-
impacts.
How does vegetation not grow or not reproduce exponentially?
Vegetation?
Yeah, that's part of the resources
Well, not
that we
for
use.
one, not all vegetation is edible.
Right. Even the ones that are.
Mm-hmm.
How does that reproduce
You've only got so much.
linearly?
You've only got so much arable land,
There's also the fact that soil depletion is a thing.
and soil depletion is a thing. Not everyone practices
Oh,
the,
okay,
the
soil
right kind of
depletion.
farming.
Right.
I mean, look at the Middle East. It used to be a lot like Ohio,
Yeah.
but thousands and thousands and thousands of years of consistent agriculture without enriching the soil again. Well, you end up with the sandbox.
Right.
Now, I'm not in favor of Malthusian theory. I think there is something very flawed about it.
I think nobody at this table truly is.
I mean, I'm not a proponent of the idea that
Which I'm-
overpopulation is a particularly bad issue.
Which we should really find the nearest local sociopath, and get him to weigh on it.
I don't know where the nearest local sociopath is.
All right,
That's
Nick
the problem.
Is
Razo.
there a Radio Shack near here?
There used to be.
Too bad it was stocked.
Sentenced it.
Too bad it was stocked with sociopaths. They don't actually connect with people enough to sell things.
But they could connect their Wi-Fi.
I guess we'll have to settle for carnies.
I guess so. But in Malthus's defense, Thomas Malthus was the guy who really proposed all this. The idea had been kind of floating around, but he codified it. One of his data points that he drew on was the medieval world. When the Black Plague came through, yeah, a lot of people died. So I've heard upwards of like 2/3 of Europe.
Yeah.
And then afterward, nobles and people who owned land and capital actually had to start paying people more, which increased the standard of living for everyone who survived. That is something that happened. But this is also pre-industrial days.
Right, I was going to say infrastructure has a big impact on how bad that's going to affect the population.
Yeah. Infrastructure and interconnectivity. And,
Yeah.
what's it called? Integration.
Yeah.
Because that's what we were talking about. We chat about these a little bit before we start recording the podcast, but we were talking about... I mean, I don't know if you want to jump into Thanos right away or if you want to hold off on that.
Oh, let's jump into Thanos. I mean, he's the... he is the Malthusian poster child these days.
Yeah.
He's a
he
big
is.
purple ball bag.
The thing that drives me nuts about Thanos is, hold on. Yeah, everyone agrees. Yeah, Thanos is a bad guy. But a lot of people think he was right.
Yeah, a weird amount of people think he was right.
I can't really wrap my head around it. It's except through understanding Malthusian theory, because that's what he's talking about.
Yeah.
But Malthusian theory, I think, the Achilles heel in that one is someone who is on the planet, a human, isn't just another mouth to feed. They're also another set of hands to work. They're another brain to innovate. And you really start to see that pick up with the Industrial Revolution. Malthus lived and died before the Industrial Revolution, where all work had to be done kind of a certain way, very backbreaking. Most people were involved in subsistence farming. Something like 80% of people were involved in agriculture. You know what the percentage of the population of the United States involved in agriculture is today? Farmers?
I would expect it to be something like 8 to 10%.
1.5.
Oh, shit, okay. Yeah.
1.5% of the United States makes more food than the entire United States can eat.
That's the real 1%. Damn farmers!
Yeah.
As an aside, I don't understand how people can look at a farmer and think, that guy's a moron. You're talking about someone who has an equivalent of multiple college degrees, owns multi-million dollars worth of equipment, and land that you couldn't even think about buying unless you're a multimillionaire.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I hope I'm just half as dumb as that guy.
I mean, I'm pretty sure nobody's really rushing to occupy Bumfuck, Kansas.
No.
No,
Now,
that'll happen.
getting back to Thanos, the way he's portrayed in there, yeah, he's a psychopath, but a psychopath with a reason.
Mm.
And then what always kind of blows my mind is when he comes through and kills off half of the population. Yeah, everyone's grieving, but then things get better.
5
somehow.
years later, things were actually okay. It's like horseshit.
Yeah.
Absolute horseshit. No, if you kill off half of the population of the entire planet, infrastructure is going to collapse, and good God, so many people would die.
Not a good day to be flying.
No, no, it wouldn't be. God, yeah, that you were talking about how like those people are also potential innovators and things like. Well, what about the ones that already are that then died? Mm-hmm. The people that are running the shit that we need. Now that they're gone, like half of the entire population of the planet's gone. People are going to starve, like real bad.
Yeah, and
Pollution's going to get much worse.
I think it was mentioned in kind of a panel talking about the snap. The guy who wrote or directed Infinity War said, yeah, it wasn't just people; it was half of all life. So that's plants,
animals, humans.
Yeah, some animals that were already on the brink of extinction, they're now extinct.
So he basically just recreated the same problem. There's half as many resources.
Yeah, I mean,
aside from
as far as food,
aside from the raw physical shit, he's basically destroyed half of the grain, half the meat, half the dairy production. He's a fucking idiot.
But you can breathe twice as much air.
That's good, because I'm going to be hyperventilating.
No, you can't! That's even producing half as much carbon dioxide as living animals versus plants. So that whole thing is just...
yeah, but he didn't wipe out like half the oxygen already in the air, is what I'm saying.
True.
Unless oxygen is alive. Out of my lungs!
Another thing, if you really think about that, all life, half your gut fauna is also gone.
Yeah.
That's probably a death sentence, too.
And it's all random. Like, was it random? See, we're getting into the weeds on this shit. Mm-hmm. Like, does that mean half of all life? Which doesn't necessarily mean half of humans.
Right.
We could have gotten, the long end of the stick on that one. Or does it mean half of humans and half of lions and half of polar bears and half of fish?
I'm thinking that's the way it goes.
Okay, I mean, I think we all kind of assume that's the way it went.
Yeah, he monkey Infinity Gauntleted, I think.
Yeah, and
that might
so
be...
that would mean half of all bacteria, right? Okay.
Half of all different species of bacteria across the entire universe.
Yeah. But, does that mean, half of one person's gut fauna? Or does it mean half of all could have been all from lots of people?
Well, they're doomed.
Yeah, they're dead.
Mm-hmm. Does this include the people that were already taken? Because could someone be turned to dust, but their gut fauna all right? And it's just...
Well, that's huh.
They never show that in the movies.
Then boom, there might be aerosol AIDS running around.
Yeah, they don't show that part on TV.
So, I didn't watch all of Captain America and the Winter Soldier.
I loved that movie.
Or what was it called?
Falcon
and the Winter Soldier.
I'm thinking of Civil War. That was my favorite.
Yeah, I didn't watch all of that one, but I watched some synopsis, and part of it was the people who came back. The world seems to be doing okay. Everyone's kind of adapted, and now after Thanos is defeated, everyone comes back, and it's like, well, shit. Can I get my house back? No, that someone else bought that.
It would be pandemonium.
Yeah, it would be.
People would be just stealing houses, basically. I live here now. And I have guns now, so piss off.
Right.
I mean, it would be absolute chaos. It would not resolve itself even the tiniest bit over the course of 5 years.
No. And then you the only people who would know what happened would, How many people know what happened? That know that this is a once in a lifetime thing. This is a once.
Not very many people would have
Yeah.
known what exactly happened. We only had
So-
one primary character that experienced that, and that was Ant-Man.
Yeah.
Because he was all in the quantum foam and shit when it happened. And then again, I was like, what happened? Well, all your friends and family are dead, except your daughter.
Well, half your friends and family are dead.
Oh, yeah. No, like all of his close friends and family were dead, except
Oh well,
for
yeah.
his daughter.
That's some bullshit. You know.
His wife was gone. Oh, wait, maybe? Yeah, no, his wife was gone. Right? Am I thinking?
I don't know.
I think so. Well, his wife wasn't his wife. They divorced, but yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Ex-wife.
Yeah.
Without
No,
getting
it was
too much.
Tony's wife and daughter that got. Something happened. I remember him running out into the field. I'm misremembering something, and they were gone.
I didn't.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of Hawkeye. Yeah, his family was the one.
Yeah,
that got
the
totally
dude
gone.
nobody cares about with the bow.
He grew on me. He was like the most identifiable character.
Eh.
He was definitely down to earth.
Yeah.
To be fair, he's more relatable than the Green Arrow. That's DC.
Anyway,
Yeah. Okay. So.
how many people actually know what happened? You're going to have probably a lot of confusion at first. It's like,
Confusion in some places, absolute panic in others, like the hospital.
well, you're going to have both, but the
hospital
confusion would, or the panic would be a symptom of the confusion.
Right.
It's like, are they coming back? Is this happening again? Is this the rapture?
Yeah, it wasn't until I watched WandaVision that you actually get a little bit of a taste of what happened in that exact moment. If you watched,
I didn't.
yeah, there's in WandaVision, one of the main characters, her mother is in the hospital, and it all happens, and then she didn't realize what the fuck happened, and it is absolute chaos in that hospital. Like nobody knows what the hell's going on.
Well,
Yeah.
Something I think we're doing here is focusing a little bit too much on Earth. Think about the kind of chaos that produces on planets with species that are naturally more aggressive and emotionally unstable than humans.
Well, we don't have anything to compare that to, really.
Yeah,
Our
I mean-
producer.
What do you think, Vespasian? He's gonna go shit in a box.
Okay. Well, that's his prerogative.
Yeah.
That's what the boxes are there for.
Yeah.
That's beyond my pay grade.
However, that is something he didn't really consider, or Thanos did not consider, is the raw amount of death that comes from basically eviscerating the support network of an entire planet. Now, it's not necessarily going to be everyone in the support structure, but the people who are there, suddenly half their help is probably gone.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about
Yeah.
earlier.
Yeah.
The people who actually know how to run the thing.
The
well,
infrastructure would be fucked.
It's like, you could probably if you had 5 years, you could probably teach someone to run a company or something
It
like.
was... something just occurred to me. It was randomized, right?
Yeah, it was randomized.
It did not determine whether someone was a sinner or a saint. For all we know, it was just a cosmic roll of the dice to keep... Oh, wait. No. Now, the assholes outnumber everyone else.
It's
Well-
possible.
You could probably teach someone, and if you got 5 years to teach someone to pick up a job, you could probably teach them to do that, unless they are really not suited for that job. So maybe that was the reasoning behind 5 years. Okay, things are running again, but that's teaching one person to do a complex job in 5 years.
Yeah.
Not everybody teaching everyone else how to do a complex job all at the same time. 5 years, that's not happening.
No.
Yeah. That is... Well,
You get through college, and then you're working on your graduate degree for a year, and then suddenly you can, I don't know, run a country.
That see the 5-year plan. We'll call it that. The 5-year plan post snap. The post snap 5-year plan could theoretically work if a very small percentage of people panicked. It's not what's going to happen. At the bottom level, those people, the ones that are panicking and stealing shit and whatever people do when they get dumb and panicky, they're going to make it almost impossible for the people who are like, okay, I'm the only doctor in this hospital now, so I'm going to try and teach everybody else how to do some of this, and it's going to be chaos, but we can manage it. If most people were that way, we could probably pull some shit out of our ass and be not absolutely fucking doomed in 5 years.
Yeah, and that's also assuming you have like perfect knowledge of what's going on.
Yeah.
Right.
Because
Right.
as far as the only thing you can say is a large portion of people you know don't exist anymore.
Right.
You don't know how many. You don't know if it's 90%, if it's half, if
The majority of people's
Yeah.
defense mechanism would have to be, hold on, what happened?
and that's not how people work.
No, it's not.
No.
No.
And this is also in a... sorry, this is pretty meta. But when it comes to Marvel, compared to other like superhero universes, Marvel, like standard regular citizens, are the most panicky, hateful creatures in fiction. They realize that mutants exist and that some of them are trying to help them. They spit on them in the street. They treat every single superhero like they're a Vietnam vet.
These new gods are terrifying. Let's treat them like shit. That's a great idea.
Exactly. And these people suddenly are, oh shit, my grandpa, my brother, my wife, they're gone. So's my boss. So's the cop over there. What am I going to do? I'm probably going to be a massive asshole and provide a moral lesson for a hero over there. That's how it works in Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
And chances are, well, that's going to happen. And they'll expect you to clap for it.
Yeah.
So, in a nutshell, no, Thanos' plan is not a good one.
No. No.
And let's face it, you give somebody the power of a god, like the kind that bends reality, can change everyone's mind with the snap of a finger, and his first thought is kill everything.
Half of everything.
Half everything.
Be fair.
Well, honestly, being fair to Thanos is probably what happened, which caused it. But, let's put it this way. He had godlike power. No, beyond godlike power, because he actually killed gods in the comics.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how you define gods, but yeah.
His first thought was kill half of everything, instead of let's double the resources.
To be fair,
Big universe.
He had that thought before he gained godlike power. He pursued godlike power so that he could fulfill that.
And then he decided, too hard, kill half everything.
Mhm.
At least in the comics, he just wanted to stick his dick in death.
Who doesn't?
At least that's... Well, if we're going with Neil Gaiman's, sure. But we're going Marvel's probably, yeah. But the problem is, he squandered that kind of power because he only saw his own world and how he cured it, rather than, I have new tools, which is exactly what screws Malthusian theory over.
Also, economy of scale.
Malthus came up in a time when the best way to light street lamps was whale oil. Before electricity.
Actually, before that,
Oh dear, that would have been
there were no street lamps.
That would have been an innovation.
Yes, whale oil would have been an innovation.
Yeah, that's kind of thinking we're dealing with. He couldn't imagine the idea that you could, I don't know, provide heat via, well, again, whale oil, or that you actually had lands to go to beyond the Atlantic.
No, he knew about the New
Yeah.
World.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Well,
It wasn't that old, man.
okay, damn it.
Well, what are you getting at with this in particular?
What I'm getting at is he is so far back down the line that there are technological advancements he could not even imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Like orbital platforms with farms.
Yeah.
Going to a different planet.
Wait, no,
and making-
whale oil was a thing when he was around.
Oh, okay.
I stand corrected.
So
he was born in 1766. He died in 1834.
So it was there, but he never saw real mechanization.
No, he started to see the beginning of the
Industrial Revolution.
in the first
Well,
industrial
yeah.
revolution. In the United States, we see it as the Industrial Revolution.
Right. Well, it wasn't
There
the first
were
one.
there were two, really.
Because the first one was in
Mid 1700s. You
Yeah.
you start getting the first steam
Manchester
engine.
area.
I don't know. It was a coal mine. They
It's
were making a steam-powered mine pump to take the water out.
I might be having my history wrong, but I remember learning about Manchester in particular being a hotspot for industrialization, and
I don't know off the top of my head.
horribly polluted.
Well, you see what I'm getting at, right?
Yeah.
He was at a point in history where he could not even imagine the very thing we're recording this on.
He didn't realize that he didn't have the wherewithal to make the argument that he was making.
Yeah.
In his defense, if things continued as they had, then he's probably right.
Yeah.
But that's not how people work.
Yeah. And he also apparently did not consider what happens when you have a population that is large, that has everything they need. It trends in the opposite direction. They don't decide to have a shitload more kids. They start having less.
Yeah, and there's also a big debate on what what a person needs to live and how much of that they need.
Yeah.
Because the more advanced we get, the more comfortable we get with our way, the way that we live, the more we start looking at the things that we can't get our hands on and saying, well, I need that. Like, that's the next thing. Like, we need that. We don't just want it, we need it now.
Well, that's the big question of economics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The central question of economics. How do you deal with infinite want with limited resources? Because if you give someone everything they ask for at any one point, they're going to ask for more eventually.
If you give a mouse a cookie.
Yeah.
On the low end, on the high end, you could get into Schopenhauer. That's basically just the idea that pursuing something is... You can't really get rid of the misery of existence, because even if you're pursuing something, once you've got it, you're actually... his argument was you're actually embittered by that success, because now you have nothing to... Now you already have it. And it's not what you built it up to be. That's part of it. And the other thing is, well, now that you've got it, what the hell are you chasing? Schopenhauer's thing was humans aren't happy unless they're chasing something, and when they get it, they're just as miserable. So what the fuck? What's the point?
Well, he sounds like an exciting fellow.
Well, he is known as the pessimist. He has a book.
So he sounds like a supervillain.
About pessimism. Yeah, that's him. That's Schopenhauer. And man, when you read it, yeah, he is a bitter... I won't say angry necessarily, although he gets angry sometimes. But he's a very bitter man.
The quintessential party pooper.
Yeah.
Sounds like that man might need some... That man might need some Buddhism.
Oh, he actually had Buddhism. Eastern philosophy had a massive impact on him. That's a big reason why he came up with some of the ideas that he did. The whole idea
Free yourself from want.
Yeah, free yourself from...
Stop wanting.
Free yourself from not just misery, if possible, but also joy.
Okay, yeah.
So he wants to live in the world of equilibrium. With possibly less gung fu.
Well, okay. I'm not actually... now that I know what you're talking about, I'm not actually seen that, but...
It's got some fun gunplay in it.
Yeah.
The way they train the priests is just no. That you can't learn gunfighting that way. That's not how any of this works.
You also get to see Christian Bale act out just an emotional breakdown at holding a puppy for the first time.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
This has to be destroyed. I'm taking this.
We're about at the 30-minute mark. I think our goal here is to have no more than 2, maybe 3 if we need it, commercial breaks, just to make it easier for us to pump out episodes. So I think we'll go every half hour and kind of play it that way.
Yeah, if we have more to say, then
we'll
keep going.
The last part can be longer. It's not a big deal. All right, we're going to take a break. Hear a word from the sponsors. If you suffer from chronic pain, mood swings, or Chinese demons in your sinus cavity, then your chi is probably out of balance. Traditional acupuncture can only do so much. I'm Dr. Pierce Bungler. AcuPine clinics use the all-natural healing properties of porcupines to achieve what traditional acupuncture cannot: deeper, longer-lasting relief.
We use the whole porcupine to maximize punctures per session, and our trademark 6-foot drop method generates more chi balance and counterforce than any other service on the market today. Are you tired of feeling pain? Exhausted from the relentless torment of ancient Chinese poltergeists? Then schedule an AcuPine treatment today. AcuPine, the supernatural acupuncture.
All right, so we've gone over a lot of MCU.
Damn it.
What
Miss
producer? You demand tuna. Well, I'm in the middle of recording right now.
Well,
Come on.
we can't really do anything about the tuna price.
I can't do that. Just strain myself. So we got a good idea of the expected outcomes and why that's not what's going to happen with a mass die-off, which is Thanos' solution to what's going on there. So, but really, what kind of thing are they trying, or are Malthusians trying to address? What is the real danger of overpopulation? Are we seeing it right now? Because there seems to be a lot of people who believe we are in a state of overpopulation. And I feel like that's understandable. I mean, it took until, I think, 1850 for us to hit 1 billion humans on the planet. Then less than a century later, we were at 2, and then...
Well, I have a theory behind why that particular idea has grown so exponentially recently, over the last, 20 years or so. I think it's because I think a lot of it has to do with social media.
Okay.
I think a big reason that people get this idea that we have an overcrowding problem or overpopulation is because now they're in almost constant contact with many, 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 many people. Like, they have a surprisingly large chunk of the human population at their fingertips.
Okay.
So you're inundated by civilization, right? Any moment, if you have the internet, at any moment you can go on and it's like, it's the world.
As civil as Twitter can be.
Well, yeah. I said civilization, not civility.
Well, that's fair.
Twitter is a cesspool.
So is it like, I don't know, kind of stressing our monkey sphere?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think it's a big reason that we feel like there's an overpopulation problem. I think it's a big reason that we have become, at least, now I can only say this from experiencing like American society among a certain age group, but it seems like we have we've become misanthropes to a much larger degree than I remember being when we were younger, or remember generations prior being, to that degree, where we start entertaining ideas like Malthusianism and, like, seriously, again, I suppose.
Okay.
Well, I wouldn't say that misanthropy has really settled in completely. I'd say it's become very trendy.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
It's not really cool to be loving to other people. I mean, yeah, it's nice, but are you going to be the hip guy, or will you seem like a pussy? Even now.
Okay, so that is a topic for an entirely different podcast about
There it is.
Yeah,
There it is.
It is. It is, because then we're going to be talking about. Okay, I would very, very, very briefly, I would argue that it's actually become more cool to be nice to people now, or at least think that you're being nice to people. And there's a difference, but again, that is a totally different podcast.
But
kindness is cooler now than it has been, than I ever remember it being. But it's a brand of kindness that is actually self-serving.
I disagree with that very much, because no, it's very cool to be vicious to people in the out-group.
Yes, but it's generally in the name of
You're kind to people, to certain people, but then you're being an absolute wretched pile of razors and salt to others.
Yeah.
For seemingly no reason.
Right. But that's in the name of what we'll say, decency.
That is in the name of being kind to the people who actually matter.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, misanthropy has become hip.
So that's why you feel that people see overpopulation as something that's happening right now.
Yeah, one of the reasons, and I feel like there's probably an argument that it's a big reason, but I couldn't.
Could another part of it be the increasing urbanization?
Yeah, it could be, but I would say
more
that
people are moving into fewer and fewer cities.
Right.
So
Right.
you're surrounded by more and more people. So this must be the entire world, right?
Yeah. See, it's the same problem, just analog and not.
Right. Well,
online.
I mean, I don't think most people live on social media. I think they use it a bit too much. But there's still a disconnect between, okay, this is nominally someone who is a person who's typing, and I'm seeing what they're saying, and then walking outside and then seeing, oh wow, look at all these people. I don't know who the hell they are. I've never said anything to them, but they're obviously people.
Yeah.
You know, you can make that disconnect from a line of text online that's not really a person, even if it is, versus that's a person walking in front of me. I can't say they're not a person.
That's true.
Unless
You can
I
do that.
brand them with something that is dehumanizing.
Right. But there's still God, I don't even know how to describe this. Even when you're not online, there is still the separated, maybe residual is the word, knowledge that the entire world is in this phone. And it's in my pocket. Now, that's an overstatement, but you know what I mean. I could access, like, billions of people with that device. Mm-hmm. In fact, we're doing it right now. Now we're not actually accessing billions of people.
That would be
right. We would be bigger than.
If everyone shares this to 13 of their friends, we'll have 1 billion people in no time.
Oh. Shit, I'll really have to go over my social media then.
But
I
yeah,
said some really nasty stuff about things.
Oh yeah. See, I don't know if you guys are worried about that. I'm not really that worried about the shit that I've already said on social media, as far as like the Arbitrarium getting big and everybody reads it and they're like, "What does this guy think?" I'm not that worried about it. Although I do have my first committed hate mail artist. I don't really know what to call them.
Yeah.
I've read it. It's entertaining stuff.
Riveting.
I mean, someone so devoted to calling you a deceiver and a racist, that's...
More particular, their fixation on my baldness.
Your baldness and your lack of sexual activity.
Apparently, which tells me that they think, well, now a whole bunch of people know. But it tells me that they might be closer than I think they are. Mm-hmm. We don't know. We'll find out.
I think we need to... Inquisition, let's begin.
Inquisition. Look out.
Whoever you are who's diving into... Are you sending fucking... All right. Belaboring the metaphor.
Yeah. Belaboring.
So what are the dangers of overpopulation? I mean...
The real dangers or the Malthusian supposed dangers?
Well, the Malthusian supposed dangers are real dangers.
Well, yeah.
I'd argue.
I thought we were sort of like with Malthusianism, we're basically saying this isn't really a problem, and here's why. So there's that.
Well,
so maybe the real dangers, but theoretically real dangers versus this is actually what would happen that we know now.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, Malthusianism wouldn't have taken off if there wasn't a grain of truth to what he's saying. And
Right.
I'd say there's more than a grain. Population pressure is a thing and certainly has been throughout history. But we're innovating at a rate that
Allows for it?
allows for population growth.
Yeah.
And we're actually getting to a point, in the first time in human civilization, where people aren't trying to have 13 kids on a routine basis.
Well, it was a roll of the dice. It's like, yeah, you had 13 kids, but 3 of them survived.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the big reasons why life expectancy has extended so much. You know, if you lived past 5 years old back in the day, there was a pretty good chance you were going to live to 60.
Yeah.
It just so many people died before they even turned 1.
Right.
It actually...
skewed the numbers a bit.
Yeah, completely offset him. I mean, it's why... Well, a large part of, I believe, was a Renaissance historian who was just way into the Roman Empire, who presented every single thing about life afterwards as a festering cesspool of disease and backwardness.
Hmm.
Yeah, he's the one who coined the term Dark Age.
Yeah.
But,
Oh, well, okay.
yeah. When it really wasn't that dark.
If anything, they actually had healthier diets and lifestyles than we do now. I mean, what was considered peasant bread back then is now considered the stuff, well...
That is
And
artisanal now.
Here's the irony.
Pay $6 for it.
Oh, I need to... Sorry about that,
Damn you.
listeners.
You've ruined the whole thing.
Thankfully, that actually happened at a moment where we weren't really talking, so that it works out. Hang on, I'm going to turn down the... There we go. Turn down the volume so that doesn't happen again.
Yeah, you're just going to have your head.
Well, you know, you can have it.
You're not using it.
It's true, I just forgot what the fuck I was going to say. We were talking about Romans...
Dark Ages.
The Dark Ages. Oh, yeah.
Right.
I was going to say, like, what is the one time in at least for Western civilization, what is the one time in one era of history that we romanticize the most?
Oh my God. There is no one time.
Well, I would say
we
in literature, we've romanticized the Dark Ages at one point or another almost more than anything else.
Example, please.
I'm thinking about all the fantasy novels, with, medieval fantasy knights.
Well, that's medieval,
Right.
not
Yeah.
dark.
Yeah.
Okay, well then my understanding of that particular part of history is a bit lacking then.
Yeah, Dark Ages are traditionally from about 500 AD to 1000 AD.
Oh, okay, that's much earlier than I was
Yes.
imagining.
Yeah.
Rome fell in, I think, 453 AD,
Yeah.
or
Okay.
was sacked. But that was the city of Rome, and the fall of the Western Empire. The Eastern Empire continued until like 14 something. But everyone calls them Byzantines now when they thought of themselves as Romans,
Right.
even though they spoke Greek. But, I mean, they were Romans,
Okay, then medieval.
kinda.
They did
Good
better
God,
than the
that came
original
hundreds of
brand.
years later then. Medieval times came hundreds of years later then.
Yes, yes, they did.
Okay, so I was way off.
Yeah, and
Yeah, Dark Ages is think like Viking raiding.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Charlemagne.
Right. Okay. All right.
Rise of Islam.
Right.
let's not
There's a lot of stuff that happened in the Dark Ages.
Right.
Which, if they were really Dark Ages, we wouldn't know about it because nothing would have been written down.
Right.
That's what defines a Dark Age.
because no one could read or write.
You want to talk about a Dark Age, you want to talk about the Greek Dark Age after the Bronze Age collapse. There's like 200 years where there is nothing written. People were too worried about survival to worry about writing anything down. Thus, you have the death of Linear B and the rise of Greek script as we know it, which was based on Phoenician.
Right.
Linear B was a completely different system. That's what the Mycenaean Greeks used.
All right. Hi, Kat. Just as an explanation for the pause, did you have something you wanted to add?
Okay.
Huh? Gotcha.
So, there are disasters that have been, I wouldn't necessarily say caused, but definitely made worse because too many people were in one location. Bronze Age collapse is a good example of that. You get an interconnected system of trade, and the little area from Greece down to Egypt out to modern day Iraq, that was the world. They knew there were other people around, but they were barbarians. They weren't,
Right.
They weren't civilized. But we don't know what caused the Bronze Age collapse. It was probably a bunch of different things. Climate change. This is when you start getting people who can kind of make iron, and in order to do that, you need to make a lot of charcoal. Another example of resource extraction taken to an extreme. Anatolia used to be covered in trees.
Yes, I've heard that.
It's not no more. It was all that shit was all cut down to make iron.
Could have been asshole time travelers.
It was probably not asshole time travelers. There's also the idea that the barbarians off to the west had enough of it, and they just start invading. They're called the Sea Peoples.
Yes.
Yeah.
You got the sea peoples.
Who are the sea peoples? Yeah.
Right. One of my favorite ones was
Well, I didn't see him coming.
a group or a pair of grad students showed up to their like department Christmas or Halloween party just with white shirts that had C's on them. The letter C. And what are you? We are the sea peoples.
Wait a minute. This is bad. This is real bad.
I believe they went and sacked the punch bowl. But the Hittites collapsed, the Egyptians, the Old Kingdom collapsed, the Mycenaean Greeks, like the Beta Greeks, just collapsed.
Mm-hmm.
It was probably a bunch of different things,
Yeah.
but
A little bit of a history lesson there.
yeah.
Well,
Sorry to bore everyone with stuff about the Bronze Age collapse. It's one of my favorite periods of history because it's so mysterious.
yeah.
We know this stuff existed, and then suddenly it doesn't.
Something that might give an idea to Malthus's particular perspective on resource scarcity and that sort of gradual decline into just a Hobbesian nightmare. When was there was a period of unpredictable weather. Start with the year without a summer. When was that?
Oh, I think it was 1820s,
So
I think.
That would have been later.
And that was
Okay.
due to a volcanic eruption.
Well, that's okay. So that was not really something that would have affected him.
No.
However,
I mean, he died in 1834.
oh, so that
So,
okay. So
I think it was 1827, but do not quote me on that. You
That's only a few
don't
years
get all
to
your
develop all
information
that.
from the Arbitrarium podcast. We're a good source of information, and we do sit on unassailable thrones of golden truth. But
visit your local library.
yeah, crack open an encyclopedia every once in a while. Just every once in a while. Don't overdo it.
But that he also lived in a period where
It's a gateway book.
where stuff like that happened, and there was no like scientific basis for why it happened. You know, they didn't know there was a
Nick, this is post Enlightenment, okay?
okay.
Um,
They still didn't figure out there was a what was it? Tempura?
Temperate?
yeah, the shrimp treat.
No, the specific volcano that went up that caused the year without that whole
I don't
thing.
know which volcano it was, but
Either way, it was still a mass eruption.
they had an idea. Hey, geological processes are a thing. This is another thing that drives me nuts. And as an aside,
And another thing.
people have this tendency to think, oh, they weren't as technologically advanced as us,
They're just as smart.
so they must be morons.
Mm-hmm.
Or, well, they didn't have all of geophysics figured out like we do today, so, they must have thought volcanoes had to do with fucking, I don't know, possessed mountains. No. This was 1820. This was 200 years ago. Our great-great-granddad lived this. This is 4 generations. Compared to the 5,000 years of recorded history, some arguably more, it's nothing. So, that they knew things. They did know some things. I mean, they had the table of elements. They had the basic fundamentals of modern science. They were working on this stuff. We're still working on it, and we built it off what they did.
Yeah, see, that's the thing that gets me is like a complete lack of acknowledgement for the process of getting to where we are now. It's like,
Right.
You want to get pissed off because people were backward 200 years ago? Yeah, okay. But at the same time, you've got that on the one hand. On the other hand, you got to realize they also did a bunch of shit that made it so that you don't die right now.
Right.
That I wasn't trying to say they were stupid. Just they didn't have all the facts.
Yeah, but they didn't just, it's a volcano. No, they were extremely curious as to why that stuff happened.
But there was also, because of the fact that because they didn't have all the facts, a lot of people might have been saying stuff that was not exactly founded in truth.
Well, people do that today.
Now, of course.
Yeah. I mean, hell, if you look at...
I mean, think about it. People still embrace Malthusian theories.
Here's an interesting question, since we're on that sort of topic. If somebody, 1,000 years in the future looked back on the internet today and What would they see as human intelligence? Like the breadth of human intelligence? Would it be the shit that you can find on like Google Scholar about science and math, or would it be some jackass on Twitter being a jackass on
You
Twitter?
girl, what wearing?
Yeah, yeah.
They probably think
Dick pics.
during the early periods of the internet, they assume we were cat worshippers like the Egyptians.
See, the men of this era seem to worship something called nudes.
Or nuds.
N-O-O-D-S. Most of the time.
We find that the
There's also nuds. The differences are subtle, but many.
we find that the men of the Indian subcontinent were extremely aggressive and demanded a lot of bobs, whatever those were.
Okay.
Yeah, so now that we've...
Getting on to...
Comedic aside.
So, Malthus was right, and there are serious things to consider with overpopulation.
Yeah.
Food shortages, well
resource shortages.
famine,
Right.
not enough living space, not enough water, bad water from human waste going into it.
Mm-hmm.
Those really are things to consider, but instead of, I don't know, finding ways to make resources last longer or finding ways to use alternative resources, which was a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we didn't have to worry about heating our homes with coal when oil came out. We didn't have to worry about chopping down all the trees to build log cabins when you come out with siding, and you could use brick, or you have so many different options to do things that you can make those resources stretch farther now.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're still working on that. It's like the energy debate. Should we go with solar, wind, or nuclear, or how about whichever works best in whichever environment?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have, everyone's looking for the one answer when it's never that simple.
Right.
No.
Well,
Even me, who's a nuclear playboy.
I think the reason so many people keep going, like trying to find that one answer, is because I think people have this idea that, okay, well, the government's only going to fund one of these things.
That's true.
And that's not wrong.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's not wrong. It's a better way to put it.
Yeah.
It's not wrong.
There's also the fact that they might be looking towards the one thing they can put all their stock money into.
I'm sure that's another part of it, yeah.
But it's...
Well, let's ask the one industry that always makes these kind of decisions. Porn industry, what do you think?
Screw it.
Put all their money in fasteners.
Well, hold on. They already...
Now, in Malthus's defense again on that, he was coming from the idea that, all right, we can't control the weather. We can't control crop cycles. What we can control is human behavior. Or, well, we can...
We
can do it, whether it's the right thing to do or not. That's a question of policy, not theory.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to give him credit there. He's trying to control the thing that can, in theory, control itself.
Right.
So props, but come on, buddy. Nitrogen fixing. It's a beautiful thing. Not everyone has to work as a farmer to feed everybody.
Right.
Yeah. And
Check mark.
Yeah. So
That's
no, good.
That's the big thing with overpopulation fear. I get it.
Right.
I really do, but we're not at that point.
What's really okay, well, we sort of addressed what's making people think that we are. Are any of these people that think that we are, experts of any kind? Are we getting this from somebody that matters, or is this just one of those ideas that's sort of floating around?
I think it's one of those ideas that's just kind of floating around. I'm sure there are some experts out there who are saying, "Wait a minute, hold on. There are things this is a problem and we need to address it." But I've not heard of them.
Mm-hmm.
If you are one of those people, by all means, drop us a line. We want to hear from you.
Yeah. Isn't it also a fallacy to appeal to authority?
Yeah, I mean, appeals to almost
authority.
Anything. Well, appealing to authority is its own thing. I mean,
And
it doesn't have to be false. It could be appeal to a legitimate authority, but there's also problems with that.
Mm-hmm.
but there's also the thing that we aren't really looking into real solutions, and they aren't really focusing on the things I think are real worries when it comes to the overpopulation threat. Because they focus on things that are, well, when people bring up overpopulation as an issue, it seems like they're going with the hot topics of the time rather than would actually be a problem.
Yeah, the kind of things that you would see in a movie about overpopulation.
Pushing more to get people worried about overpopulation than what the actual effect would be.
Soylent Green is people!
Oh, one thing I did want to touch on with the overpopulation threat concept is I've seen someone. Well, we make more food than there are people that can to eat it. Like billions more tons of food than people can actually eat. And well, it's not just resource consumption. It's not like we're going to run out of food or water. It's like people use so much stuff that pollutes the environment as well. So they'll lump climate change or pollution in with too many people being around. And okay, I kind of see that, but
it's not the overpopulation itself that is the problem. It's the methodology.
well, the threat's still the same.
Well, yeah.
It's still it still comes back to the resources. If we pollute the environment to where you can't produce the resources you need, you're running into the same problem of not having enough resources. If we turn the world into a Venusian hothouse, well, you've just annihilated your own resources via the mechanism of overpopulation. So it's saying, well, climate change is the problem from too many people is really just rephrasing the question. I wanted to nip that one in the bud for anyone who might be listening.
Yeah. And on that, the issue for feeding all those people comes down to logistics. I mean, that's something that came up in the off-podcast discussion. Because we do produce more food than anyone can eat, but we just can't get it to the mouths.
I was going to go into that in the next segment.
Oh, yes. Huh.
Well, it's about that time, so we'll go ahead and take a little break. And Garrett, you're the host. Do this.
All right, so I hope you show the people that we're about to put up some love. You know, there will be merch. Buy it.
As any entrepreneur knows, the fastest way to bankruptcy is a dearth of reliable staff. Other agencies lag behind waiting for applicants to come to them. We're more proactive. At Impress Staffing Solutions, our Impressment recruiters make sure that your staffing needs are met within the hour, bringing algorithmically qualified candidates to your workforce for only a small acquisition fee. Remember, at ISS, we aim to impress. Impress Staffing Solutions is not responsible for allergic reaction to sedatives or chloroform, contusions, and is not criminally liable for kidnapping or unlawful imprisonment.
I hope you enjoyed that message from our sponsors.
I know I did.
They gave me a free hat.
You got a free... I got a handful of fiddle faddle from them.
Literally, it was a handful of fiddle paddle. I brokered the deal.
It was your fault? And you gave him a hat? You're fired.
Oh, okay.
After this episode.
Okay, it wasn't... They told me it was supposed to be free. I did things with a hat.
Yeah, we
Terrible things.
we gave him an ad on the...
Shouldn't have gave him a beanie.
You gave him a beanie and got a hat in return? You got a hat for a hat?
No, I gave him a beanie. He said he did horrible things to it. If it was a baseball cap, that would have been a lot harder.
All right, so I'd like to talk about why I don't think overpopulation is as big of a problem as everyone thinks it is, or as a lot of people, not everyone, as a lot of people think it is. And the first thing I'd like to point out is we have about 7.5 billion people on the planet, right?
Roughly, yeah.
Give or take a few hundred million.
Right.
We currently make between 10 and 11, or we currently make enough food for between 10 and 11 billion people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the initial thought anyone rational should have is, well, then how is there world hunger? Well, making the food isn't the problem anymore. Getting it to the people who need it is the problem. And then, can they afford it?
Right, right.
Because That's something that happens a lot with third world countries when a first world one, like the United States, Europe, the UN, whatever, they decide to show up and just start dumping free relief rations. It collapses the local markets with farmers, so they are suddenly now on the rations, and instead of becoming stable, they become dependent, which doesn't help anybody's economy, and boom, hunger occurs.
Well, it doesn't help anyone's economy. It does help spheres of influence, but
Yeah, but that doesn't help anybody.
that's like hunger politics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not a good thing to do. Well, not an
Yeah.
altruistic thing to do. Now,
No.
if agricultural production and technology remains the same, as in we make no further advancements, regardless of what it is, if it remains dead the same as it is today, we're still producing food for 10 to 11 billion people. It's estimated that world population will kind of peak at 9.5 billion between 2070 and 2080, and then go down and stabilize at about 9 billion. As more countries become developed, well, we see the trends in birth rates in developed countries. As a country gets more developed, it tends to go down in birth rate. Sometimes it reverses. I'm looking at you, Japan. I saw what you did in the hanky. A shameful display.
Put it in woman!
Well, we're gonna pay for that one.
Yep. They know what they
I
do.
feel like that's gonna be a new trope. Oh, we're gonna pay for that one.
Well, they're going to pay us.
I just hope they don't take it out of our ass.
Shameful display.
That's putting it into our ass. So, right there, if nothing else changes, that in defense of Malthus, again, we have no guarantee that technology will continue to progress. We might have hit peak human technology today. It's never a given.
Sorry.
It's never a given.
Okay, so
Yeah.
go on.
And then going back to the to the global warming issue or climate change, whatever they're calling it these days. More people does mean more energy being used. Yes. So I think we have a moral imperative, almost moral imperative, to ensure that developing countries don't make the same mistakes that current developed countries made back in the day.
All right.
Like instead of transitioning from coal to whale oil to kerosene to coal to oil to natural gas to how about skipping all those steps of let's go in from burning oil in a pit to generate power and heat homes and that kind of thing. Let's build a grid. Build a more efficient grid than we have, because we know how to do that now. It's just the project to build a more efficient grid now. It would be another endeavor along the lines of the Manhattan Project,
Yeah.
or sending a man to the moon. That's how big the grid is.
Yeah, the issue isn't just constructing something, it's taking out what's already there. Because it's set up in a very efficient manner in places. It's just, you got to replace that old wiring with something that's been created more recently that can do the job better.
Well, it was efficient
For the time.
for the 1930s. Don't overlook that accomplishment. That was incredible.
Oh, yeah.
Wiring an entire continent.
Oh yeah, I've always been amazed at how quickly we ended up with an interstate system.
Yeah,
That was built by a Eisenhower, I believe?
it was started under Eisenhower. I
That's
don't know
why
when it
some-
was finished. I don't even think it really was. But
I know that's part of the reason that so many have so many straight lines, so they can also serve as impromptu airfields or landing grounds for planes.
yeah, there was a big defense or Department of Defense initiative on that. So along with
Pretty well.
building an electrical grid to make sure that people get or energy more efficiently and more cleanly than what we built. Mm-hmm. We also have it. Get them to build infrastructure,
Right.
to make sure that the food that is grown can get to the people who need it.
Right.
Because if you have enough food for 1 billion people left over and it's just rotting away, it's not helping anybody.
Right.
So we need to work on logistics for sure.
If anything, that much wasted food actually feeds into the climate change debate, because that is a shitload of methane being produced from rotting vegetables.
I mean, I don't know the numbers on that.
Yeah.
I'd need to see the numbers on that.
The majority of methane produced, I believe, is from landfills and rotten fruit. I mean, if nothing else, we could at least start an initiative to turn it all into ethanol.
It's a possibility. But another good example is the leaded gasoline. The whole reason leaded gasoline was a thing was pure gasoline being put into an engine had a tendency to make it knock. It would have issues. So the guy was trying to think of a way that he could make money to make it basically something you put into gasoline to make it run more efficiently, or with fewer issues. And there was a product that was already around, but you couldn't patent it because, well, it was everywhere. Everyone knew how to make it. So he came up with lead, and then that became the industry standard. The other competing thing was ethanol, which is why all gasoline is about 10 to 15% ethanol. Since we got rid of lead, because breathing in lead isn't good for people.
No.
I mean, a lot of people get lead in the lungs, never recover. It's usually a fairly high concentration, a split second.
The joke was it was a gunshot. If you didn't get that, that's what the joke was.
We really need to get a bell.
We need to put it around his neck.
I'm a human pachinko machine. It normally goes off on its own.
Okay. You got questions? Concerns, Dave?
I mean, as far as you were outlining why you think it's not as big a deal as some people seem to think. I mean, I don't know that much about that end of things. I think more in terms of how ideas like that affect people psychologically and then by extension sociologically. That's how I tend to think of those things. We're talking about people who, you're online or whatever, and you'll hear somebody talking Malthusian politics, or you'll hear some misanthrope. I was actually. So, I'm a member of only one, technically 2 Facebook groups. The other one is Tasteful Nudes. Matt's ridiculous pet project. It's all shit posting. It's not actually nudes. But yeah, the other one is a philosophy group. And I actually had somebody come on there and said something to the effect of, since we're talking about antinatalism, said that Earth is a place of human suffering, period, and then antinatalism would solve the problem of human suffering, or antinatalism would end human suffering. That was the statement. So
that's like negative utilitarianism.
Well, yeah, and it's somewhat related. It's mostly the idea that
can't be no pain if no one's around to live it.
Right. It's like you get 0 points for creativity because duh.
I mean, you are literally a Final Fantasy villain.
Yeah.
At that point, yeah.
And it's like, there are so many problems. The logistics of making that leap, of actually instantiating that in any kind of policy, or making it actually happen, is so unbelievably inhumane. It's difficult to imagine the scale of how inhumane that is. Because, can you imagine if you were the guy that said that made that proclamation, and then managed to deservingly live through all of it and be the last one to die? I feel like you would deserve it at that point. You get to watch everything up to that point, and then you can stand on the cliff and look at all the bodies and and still feel some amount of pride that you had made that proclamation in the first place and that it succeeded.
Well, I hope he learns to farm. Because he's not going to live that long if he doesn't.
Or he's the world's most devoted spam connoisseur.
You have to kill hope.
Yeah.
In all of its incarnations. You have to make the idea that the future is worth being around for so unthinkable that no one has any hope for it anymore.
And I find that repulsive.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that is the greatest...
And not just do that. You have to actively say, by saying all this, by having any hope, you're a terrible human being.
Right. Because the logical extension
there's
of that is that if you're not after the antenatal, I hate to use the word agenda, but you know what I mean. If you're not in service to that idea, then you are necessarily some kind of monster. Like you're on the wrong side of things.
You'll drag other people or other things into suffering.
Right. You're extending suffering longer than it needs to be. It's like, well, yeah. Well, one of the things that he said was, he doesn't advocate going out and murdering a whole bunch of people because that's wrong. Like, we're just adding to the suffering. It's like, hang on. You're only if you're allowing people to live longer, you're adding to the suffering. Mm-hmm. Right. The logical conclusion to this line of thinking is kill everyone as quickly as possible.
Yeah, that is by definition negative utilitarianism.
Right.
Yeah.
Instead of utilitarianism providing the most amount of happiness for the most amount of people, negative utilitarianism is removing the most amount of suffering from the most amount of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, kill it all.
As quickly as possible.
Don't we have a sponsor, the Global Bisection Institute?
We do.
They haven't sent us any copy to read yet.
No,
but
not yet.
They have contacted us.
Yes.
That is kind of their thing.
We should probably get back to them. I'm afraid of what they might do to us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, where I sit on this whole thing is, this may surprise some people, but I'm actually very optimistic. I mean, yeah, the drinking and the rage and the heavy metal, yeah, that says, no, this guy doesn't believe the future is going to be a great place, but no. I'm a technologist optimist. I think all these problems can be solved with reason and technology. I mean, we run out of space. What's stopping us from building under the ocean, digging down, creating fusion reactors in Antarctica and our colonies there?
Well,
are you suggesting Sea Lab?
I mean, if you're looking for me, you better check under the sea. That's where you're going to find me. Underneath the sea lab, underneath the water.
Well, it's the right year for it.
It is 2021.
Oh, God, it is. Oh, it is 2021. Oh, and you know what's next year? The year that Soylent Green was set. 2022.
Oh.
So look out for Soylent Silver.
So we're going to get Sea Lab this year, and then we're going to get Soylent Green next year.
But will we ever get Mingus Dew?
We technically already have Soylent Green. The company does exist.
Yeah.
I thought it was just called Soylent. They didn't call it Soylent Green.
Pretty sure they make a flavor in green.
I think there is a green of it. It's like, why would you choose that name?
It's probably because it has a shitload of kale.
Brand recognition.
Yeah, I mean, that's it, right? But do you want to be associated with...
Cannibalism?
Cannibalism?
Depends.
It's like,
how does it taste?
Welcome to the Hannibal Lecter meatpacking industry.
Actually, I think he'd be more a selection of very elite charcuterie boards. Made of the elite, actually.
We could literally eat the rich.
You ever have a PhD? It was delicious.
But
so, yeah, that is cannibalism is a concern in Malthusian theory because you run out of resources. Well, you're surrounded by walking meat.
that has its own philosophical implications and ethical ones too. I mean, this often comes up with. Oh no, that's an entirely separate podcast.
Kind of reminds me of a modest proposal.
Well, yes, but that's an entirely separate podcast. are cannibals the most human of us all? You know, because you are what you eat. That's one we're going to do later, I think.
It's on the list of ideas.
On the list.
Cannibals all the way down, man.
Of course, we talk about
I was just thinking like a tower of cannibals. Nom nom nom. Almost like Dig Dug, but it's all cannibals.
You know, a bit like Dig Dug, a bit like Pac-Man, a bit like the Human Centipede, except they're not wasting anything.
because it's cannibals all the way down.
Yeah, that's.
The heat death of the universe.
I don't want to think about that. All right. Yeah, do you have any concerns, like, about, I don't know, just the do you think Malthus has a point?
I think we, for the most part, covered that, because I don't know that much about Malthus, but, I mean, I could see, I think we kind of covered it when we were talking about, you know, we could see how he came to the conclusions that he did, given the resources that he had, given the knowledge that he had access to. So it's like, you know, I don't think the guy's an idiot, and reasons for believing what he did, he was just wrong.
I think we also agreed that Thanos is kind of a ball bag, like just kind of a murderous ball bag.
His chin does look like one testicle.
Yeah, I mean,
like one blue testicle. Maybe that's his problem. Blue balls.
Yeah. Well,
in the comic, that is his problem.
That is his problem. In the comic.
Yeah. I mean, maybe. Well, when Thor attacked, he should have went for the head, but that wouldn't have been his head. Really. Been straight to the nuts.
I wasn't saying his testicles were in his chin, just that his.
No, if he hit his, he's thoroughly insane.
Are we suggesting that Thanos' head is just a ball wash machine?
Save Beavis.
Your balls are filthy.
Yeah, so I think this is a good final thoughts segment here.
I think the future is. We might just be Malthus sitting around, not realizing that just around the corner are 3D printed steaks. Or a island paradise down in Antarctica.
This goes along with that idea that, you know, things aren't as bad as we like to say that it is.
Because it gets clicks.
We're in a time right now where, God, if you were just listening to the average American, but you know, between the ages of, I don't know, 20, not even 15, I would say older than that. I'd say 25. Because people in the younger generations than that tend to be like, whatever, we'll figure it out.
Maybe
my
you were.
But yeah, it's really, really. Listening to them talk, you would think that this is the worst possible time to live in human history.
They are so wrong.
Like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah. You're
Who the hell thinks that? That is comically off the mark.
Oh yeah.
It's like I love studying history, but one of the big things I learned from studying history was I'm glad I don't live there.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're worried about you're about enslavement and rape on a mass scale back in the past.
Yeah, it's like they're complaining about it now, which is still a problem. Like, I'm not saying that it doesn't need to be dealt with because fuck all that shit. But, I mean, don't. That was poor choice of words. Yeah, but compared to how it's operated in the past, we're doing all right. We're getting better every day.
Have you had to eat the peel of a grapefruit at any point in your life?
No.
No, but I feel like that's something I could do without.
That was about 100 years ago when that was necessary because of the fucking Great Depression and Clutch Plague. About 100 years ago.
Clutch Plague? I've never heard.
Okay, eating the raw.
I've never heard Spanish influenza referred to as clutch plague.
It's an economic.
That sounds like a fetish.
Yeah. It's kind of a precursor to the Great Depression, or another term for it.
Well, eating the grapefruit rind, that's really not that bad compared to a lot of other things. I'll eat a grapefruit rind if it means.
Guess what?
100 years ago, we didn't have antibiotics. You cut yourself shaving, and there's a very real chance
it's going to get infected.
Goner.
Well, again, The grapefruit rind is the good part. You could have had to eat an actual, like, pig intestine without cleaning it out properly.
Yeah, see that. Yeah.
Because you didn't know the shit would get you sick. You just
I
assumed
mean,
it was
you're
the
talking
part-
about, education on that one, but it's just... I like cold beer. I
Yeah.
like air conditioning.
Air conditioning.
Especially, like, right now, because it is
Yes.
horrible outside.
It is
Unless you're
horrible.
Lovecraft, at which point it's the base of an entire horror story.
Yeah, that's true, but...
He was the kind of guy who heard that there were non-visible frames. of
For
light.
reference, read H.P. Lovecraft's Cold Air.
Yeah.
That is the name of the book, and it's about a guy who, well, just read it, and it's a joy these
Yeah.
days, because dude is terrified of anything new.
Yeah.
I think HP stands for hates progress. I can't take credit for that joke, but
No.
More like Coward Phillips, really.
yeah, you're one of the biggest killers in the United States is auto accidents.
Yeah.
You are living in a time where seemingly where most people can afford a box that can get them anywhere in the country in a few days, that hurtles them across a strip of land, a flattened strip of land that has been flattened for thousands of miles at unreasonably high speeds.
Yeah.
That same trip would have taken...
Powered by tamed explosions.
Yes.
Yes, that were mined out of the dead dinosaurs.
Well, it was mostly dead plants. Come
Dead
on.
plants, yeah. It's still the
It's
ancient...
refined out of dead plants.
refined out of
Ancient
ancient
dead
death.
plants.
Ancient death.
People who get bored with the world, I don't... It's hard for me to wrap my head around that. You are living in the most incredible time in human history.
The fact that you can just pull something out of your pocket and learn that, yeah, zombies are real. Just, they only work on bugs right now.
Cordyceps.
If I have a question, I can pull out my phone and answer it.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it'll be the right answer necessarily. That's on me.
You also have an entire library's worth of masterpieces from, you can just search for whatever artists you want, and their works will be shown on that little thing. Even some that aren't really masters. I mean, don't ever look up your first name with the hedgehog after it on Google image search.
No, yeah.
It's going to be disturbing.
I'm expecting commissions for that.
So I think this is a good place to end there.
Yeah, we are sort of
And
meandering at this point.
I think it's also a good lead into my next subject. I've decided on it. Next time I host, we're going to be talking about finding purpose in post-scarcity societies. Because in a lot of ways, we're already in one.
I'm excited for that one. That's
yeah.
going to be a really, really good topic.
My favorite example of post-scarcity society and how we're already in one. If I were to give you $5 and said, hey, get me all the turnips you can get your hands on, how many turnips could you get with $5?
Depends on where I went. I mean, if I wanted it quickly, I could just go down to the grocery store and get you, I don't know, probably a couple pounds.
Yeah. Now, if I handed you $5 and said, get me all the pornography you can get your hands on with this $5, how much could you get me?
I'd pocket the 5 and give you all the porn that I could.
All of it.
Just all of
Just
it.
all of it. You could give me all of the porn.
I would actually do the creepy
Now, there's a
weird
lot of
stuff.
porn you still got to pay for, but there's a whole
There
bunch
are
of...
ways around that, and we all
True.
know.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would
Yes, we
honestly
do.
go with the weird, creepy stuff just for a kick.
So, at least in that one specific situation, at least, and I'll bring up other examples, we are already in a post-scarcity society.
You know we're having it good when we can have all the free porn in the known universe.
Yes.
And some of which,
I almost said the world, but I was like, no, I can disingenuously get bigger than that.
and let's be honest.
No,
not
you
all
can
of them
genuinely get bigger than that.
In the known universe.
In the known universe,
Yeah.
we are the only source of porn that we know about.
And we have actually created porn that is theoretically set in other universes.
Yes.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
we're branching out.
In the known multiverse.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on that note, we are now on YouTube. Please like, share, and subscribe. I hate that I say that, but I'm glad that I can say that.
Just
And wherever you can listen to podcasts.
Just so you know, we have a lovely compilation of our sponsors, just so you know what to buy and who might kill me if I talk bad about them. So
Yeah, so there's 2 playlists. You got the full episodes playlist, and well, as of right now there are 2. The other one is the bonus episodes playlist, and you've got our first ad collection. So you can check that out. Give you a few laughs. Are we good?
I think we're good.
I think we're good. Say bye, everybody.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Bye, everybody.